Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back to All the Kings Men. Joining me today, the brand new voice of the Ontario Reign, Cam McGuire. Cam, are you a Cameron or a Cam?
Well, officially a Cameron, but I won't be offended. But I officially
is it like that's your government name?
Yeah, like on
right.
my social
Okay.
security, my
Sure.
driver's license, Cameron. But I prefer Cam. But if someone calls me Cameron, I won't be offended.
I think I've been introduced to you as Cam. You're in my phone as Cam.
Yeah.
When I refer to you, you're Cam, and yet somehow now that I'm talking to you, I'm like, no, his name's Cameron.
Well, I feel like Cameron's more of like a girl's name. Is that accurate? Because there are both
guess.
boys and
Yeah.
girls. Like growing up, like I knew a couple
Sure.
girls that were Cam or Cameron, but I don't know. There's something about it. Like I said,
wasn't DJ Tanner the actress Cameron?
maybe
something or other?
potentially.
I'm
Like
blanking
I said,
on the name, but yeah.
call me whatever you want.
All right.
Either or won't offend me.
So you take over for Jared Shaffrin and Josh Schaefer, calling Ontario Reign games this season. You come from the Idaho Steelheads. That's where you previously
Yep.
worked. But let's go back even further. How did you get into hockey to begin with?
Well, I always played hockey throughout my entire life. It was something that I was very passionate about. It was kind of the only thing that I really knew. And I went to a small Division III school outside Chicago called Lake Forest College. And oddly enough, went there to play hockey, didn't make our team. And then I'm like, oh crap, okay, what do I do with my life now, right? Because like I just said, all I ever knew was hockey. And at the time, my brother was playing at the University of Wisconsin. So my freshman year at Lake Forest was his junior year in Madison. So like I said, I kind of had that oh crap moment, like what do I do now? I was never really knew what I wanted to do beyond college. It was something that, like every kid, right, you don't really necessarily think about it. So kind of how it happened was, spent my freshman year, I pretty much went to every one of my brother's games at Wisconsin, and there was one instance where he was like, hey, like, you should sit up in the press box, like in the booth, and I sat with their radio person, Brian Posick, and I had the headset on and just sat there and listened and watched, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm like, this is your job? And he's like, yeah, this is what, like, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like, maybe I could do this. And I kind of went back to Lake Forest, and I did a couple games my freshman and sophomore year. I was roommates with all the guys on the team, and for me, it was just a way to stay involved in the game. And to be honest, I just kind of took it more of something to do and something to still be around my first 2 years. And then once my junior year came around, I started to kind of quote unquote take it maybe a little bit more serious. And I feel like that was the time where it was like, okay, this is something that I'm actually going to try to make a profession of.
What was your major?
My major was communications with a business minor.
Okay. Do you use more of what in your professional life? Have you used more that you learned experientially through the story you just told, or more from the classes you took for your
From the
major?
classes that I took, I maybe use 2% of what I learned.
So I'm going to make this all about me now. I have long thought that college athletes should not be allowed to take communications or sports management or any of those other courses that they sort of make up, but they should be taught sports broadcasting,
right?
Equipment managing, because there are tons of jobs in this industry that you never know about, and people wind up in them because someone has to do them. But there's hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, there are thousands of college athletes who have passion, experience, and knowledge about these games, yourself included.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, if I had to go back and do it, I probably would have just made what I did in terms of broadcasting in college. I probably could have just made my own major, because there were students at our school, and it's not like it's a little bit uncommon, but it's not like it's never happened before. It was just something I never thought of. So I took all the communications classes just to cross the box and get my degree. But to be honest, like I spent all my time focusing on broadcasting and doing different things in terms of the sports media world and the sports department that we had at our school. It was a really small school, it was 1,500 kids, so there wasn't a formalized like broadcasting major or broadcasting program. I was the only one that was doing it. And oddly enough, though, with that being said, no formal broadcast program, department, so on and so forth. But there are two people in the NHL that went to Lake Forest. Brian Ray, who graduated in 2005, is now the TV host for the Dallas Stars, and he was in the AHL with Texas before being promoted to Dallas. And then Doug Plagans, who graduated in 2007, he's the radio voice for the Florida Panthers. So I was able to connect with those two very early on in college, and still guys that I keep in touch with today. And they still are great mentors to me, and they kind of taught me the ropes when I was just starting to get going a little bit.
So then after college, straight to Worcester or?
Straight to Worcester, okay. Yeah. I graduated from Lake Forest in May of 2019, and I don't know, let's just call it May 10th to throw a number out there. And I think I started in Worcester maybe a week or two after that. The rest is history.
How long did it take you to pronounce Worcester correctly?
Honestly, not too bad, because right. I technically grew up in the East Coast in Connecticut. So not
technically?
Yeah, it's a long story. Like some people are like, "Oh, where are you from?" If we want to get into it, we can. But so I was like familiar with Worcester growing up on the East Coast and playing hockey all around New England. So for me, it wasn't necessarily a struggle to say, but almost everyone that I come across that either isn't from the East Coast or has heard of Worcester before, I've heard probably 12 different pronunciations of Worcester and maybe 13 different spellings of how you could spell it.
So you have a measure of success at Worcester, given the size of the market and the size of the team. Is it because of that success that you were able to then move to Idaho?
Yeah, I was, it's one of those things, and I tell kids nowadays too, like, if you want to get into the minor league hockey circuit or the junior hockey circuit in terms of a media role, specifically play-by-play, obviously a play-by-play announcer in the minor leagues and in the junior levels has a lot more responsibilities than just calling the game. But it's hard coming right out of college, right? Because you graduate more times than not. Most people graduate in May. And for most teams and most leagues, there might be some teams that are still in playoffs, but realistically, in the months of June and July, teams aren't looking to hire a play-by-play announcer because the summers for that role are not as busy as they are during the season. So it's one of those things where it's unknown, which can be scary, right? Like you graduate college and maybe you don't have a job, which is kind of like, oh crap, like I need to get a job. Like I'm in the real world now. So I had made a decision that I think it was like January or February, the year I graduated, to go back and do baseball in Wisconsin, which I had done the summer before in a collegiate summer league. It was an internship going into my senior year, and I was just like, okay, like I will do this summer, and then while I do that, it'll allow me time to look for jobs in hockey that'll more than likely not open up sometime down the road in the summer. But I didn't want to graduate in May and then just be sitting around doing nothing and trying to figure out, like, just sitting around waiting for an opportunity to open up. So the position in Worcester opened maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I graduated, and I just saw it online, and it was listed as a social media and public relations coordinator. And I read the description a little bit and was like, okay, maybe this is something, right? Like, this is better than nothing, right? So I threw my name in and got an email back and had an interview with a guy named Eric Lindquist, who was the main play-by-play person in Worcester. He had been there for an eternity. He was with the Worcester Sharks before they moved to San Jose and became the Barracuda, and he actually spent 1 year with the Barracuda before deciding to go back to Worcester, because when Worcester moved their AHL team similar to how Manchester moved to Ontario. They had a off year where they didn't have hockey in Worcester. So Eric moved out with the team to San Jose in the same role and decided after 1 year that he wanted to go back. And then the ECHL team was starting. So he was heavily involved in that. And he started with the Sharks in their first year in, I don't know, I think it was like 2005, give or take. So at this point in 2019, he had been in this circuit for 15 plus years, and he was the one that I interviewed with, and he kind of asked like what I was looking for, so on and so forth, and I was honest, being like, hey, I'm actually like, my main goal is I want to be a play-by-play announcer, but I understand that like you might not get that role right out of college, but I've looked at this and it seems like a great opportunity. And he was like, well, I've been in this 15 plus years now, whatever. I'm actually trying to like somewhat transition out of it and go into more of a management role in terms of just more of like hockey ops side and kind of, not to demise a radio position, but he wanted to kind of like wanted a little something bigger. So my first year in Worcester, I called, so we had agreed upon, it was something that he was like, I'll let you do play-by-play for 50% of the games. You can do all the home games, and I'll do color on the road games, and then we'll switch on the road, with the intention that when you're on the road, there's a lot of emphasis put on capturing content and getting more behind-the-scenes material. So by Eric doing play-by-play and me being on the road with him and doing color, I was able to kind of be like a rover, right? Where I could, if I wanted to step away from the booth for 10 minutes and go down to the ice and shoot video or take pictures or get the guys walking in and out of somewhere, just I was able to kind of be in a bunch of different places. So that was his reasoning for splitting it up that way. But yeah, so that was my first year in Worcester there. And then, so March of 2020, as everyone knows, COVID. And so I did that it was pretty much a full season. I think we played 60 of the 72 games. So let's just cut it down the middle. I had 30 games of play-by-play at the ECHL level, and then we did not play the following year because of COVID. So I actually spent the 2020-21 year kind of just filling in, doing some minor broadcasting work wherever that would be. I was still in Worcester. I was actually spent a majority of my time coaching hockey at a academy in New Hampshire with 15 and 16-year-olds. And then I actually would call some of their games too, oddly enough. So it was pretty funny. And then my brother's a high school coach in Wisconsin, so I was back there for about a month, and I helped call some of their games. And then going into the following year, 2021-22, Eric had shifted out of play-by-play, so it was my show, per se, and he was still around working for Cliff Rucker, the owner of the team in Worcester, in kind of different departments, but he still was involved with the team, but not as much. So everything that I had seen him do, I learned a whole lot my first year, and I'll be like forever grateful for that, because if I didn't have that first year with him, I probably would have drowned, because I didn't know it's all the other stuff, right? It's like booking the hotels, booking the buses, giving out per diem, immigration work, all the media notes, knowing this goes there, that goes there. At the end of the day, calling the game, as everyone knows in this position, is 5% of your job, and you need to make sure that the other 95%, which at the end of the day is probably, not to take away anything from the broadcast, because the broadcast is what we want to do and it's certainly important, but guess what, if if you don't have a nugget on a player for a broadcast, or you forget to send in your players' tickets for the game, which one's going to have more leverage? So that was something that I was taught early on, and it's something that has always stuck with me, and something that I still kind of wear on my sleeve.
I want to back up a little bit, because you talked about wanting to be a play-by-play announcer, and Josh Schaefer, somebody I've known for years, and he has a reverence and a respect for the position of play-by-play announcer that I just don't relate to. Like, my attitude is I like a good play-by-play announcer.
Well, yeah.
I don't like a bad play-by-play announcer, but I'm not entirely sure what differentiates one from the other. And at the end of the day, I'm going to watch the games I want to watch. And if I don't like the broadcasting crew, every 5 minutes, I'm just going to go, oh man, this sucks. But I'm not going to turn it off.
Yeah.
So for somebody who grew up playing, do you have that kind of like awe and reverence for the play-by-play
No,
announcer?
I'm not at all, to be honest. I'm more like you. Like, this profession for me was something that I never even thought of, and it was something more that I just kind of walked into. And for whatever reason, for me, like school for me, for example, like, I was a fine student, like B's, that's good. But I struggled in school, and I like, everything came just a little bit harder. But for whatever reason, like, growing up, I was always able to remember players' names and numbers and just weird stats. And if I see a team once, and you ask me, what shot is this guy? What number is he? Like, I like that. And for whatever reason, I guess that was God's gift to me. Trying to pass a statistics class was not. But no, I never, like, growing up, I was somewhat, like, fixated on that stuff. Like, I always, like, followed different players, but I never, like, if you ask me, like, who my favorite broadcaster is, I don't have one, because like you said, I never watched a game. I watched the game for the game, or for specific teams that I maybe am a fan of or follow. But looking back on it, like, if say I was watching on the East Coast, like watching a Devils Penguins game, I couldn't even, like, I mean, now I know it was Doc Emmerich,
Sure.
but like back then, I'm like, I honestly, I think it took me maybe, this is my 6th year of professional hockey. I honestly think I did not know that Doc Emmerich was the New Jersey Devils announcer probably until 6 or 7 years ago.
So then if you're on the road, and I'm sorry, Ed was his name?
What's that?
The play-by-play?
Eric.
Eric.
Yep.
So Eric's calling the game, you're doing color, but you're free to roam
Yeah.
and get content and everything. What's driving your decision-making process? At what point are you like, what would be really great right now is if I ran down and took a picture of the goalie, in his net when the puck's on the other side of the ice, or I'm going to go interview some fans out in front of, like, what was the thought? Where did that thought process come from inside your head?
I think a lot of it wasn't necessarily my idea. It wasn't my idea. It was something I never really had thought of. And Eric, who had been around that level for so long, he kind of knew. And especially at the ECHL level versus what I've noticed at the AHL, like, obviously the fans play a huge impact. That doesn't matter whether you're NHL, AHL, ECHL, like, the fans at the end of the day, like, that's what drives the team, right? But there is a little bit more, there is a little bit more of, like, the entertainment level, and, like, trying to draw in a fan base at the ECHL level. I think it's different at the AHL level, because you're dealing with high-end prospects and younger players, where the ECHL level, yeah, you might still be doing that a little bit, but it's not to any degree that you are at the AHL level. I think a lot of what I had done in the ECHL and what I was taught mostly on was personalities, right? Like, how can we bring out personalities in our players and that our fans can relate with? So how can we bring the fan base in closer to the team? So for a lot of the stuff that we did on the road, it was dumb and silly, some of it was funny, some of it was probably cringeworthy. I'm sure we'll get into some stuff that I have done throughout the years, but Eric was the one that kind of taught me that, and it was something that I never really thought. And I remember when he brought me in that first year right out of college, he's like, I've listened to all your stuff, like, you know what you're doing, like, you have a good call, but I can vividly remember, he's like, but we're going to get you to loosen up a little bit. And I think it's such a fine line, right? Because it's such a fine line of not being too stiff, but also not being too loose, and not making it look like you're just a clown. right?
So this is a perfect way to get into
Yeah.
the only thing I want to talk to you about, no offense. So when you left Worcester, you went to Idaho.
Yeah.
You worked for the Idaho Steelheads. And for those who don't know, a steelhead is a fish.
Yeah.
And you did a bit called Predict the Fish. And I'm going to ask our producers now to show an image while we're talking of Cam dressed like a fish for Predict the Fish. And the phrase that popped into my head when I was talking to somebody, I don't remember who, apologies if I'm quoting this conversation, but the conversation I stumbled on was the reason that I like Cam already initially without really getting to know you very well. I mean, we bumped into each other at Ralph's once, but was that the Predict the Fish bit to me means that you take the job seriously, but you don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah.
And that to me is like the sweet spot of everything, because other people are relying on you to do the job.
Right.
So you have responsibilities and you're part of a team. And, you know, like if you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, you know, there's call times, there's meetings, like do it. But don't be afraid to be like, to dress like a fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, some people think that suit is actually like a dragon. So everyone that just saw that up there, it's weird looking, for sure.
The title of the segment is Predict the Fish.
Predict the Fish, but I'm like, someone thought it was a dragon once. I'm like, it's a fish. Like, we're the Steelheads.
But you also were like moving like a fish in some of the clips I saw.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I mean, I guess I could start with how it all came about to start, like,
well, whose idea was it?
Mine. Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah. But for me, it's never been, and it never kind of will be, it's never been about me, right? Like, I'm the one, I've been in positions and I've been in places where it maybe looks to like if you went on the Steelhead social media page from the 3 years that I was there, my face lived everywhere, whether it was in a suit or in a fish costume. But I never did that for my ego or did that for myself. I did that for the fans and the people that followed and watched, because those are the ones, like I said a little bit earlier on, that kind of drive the bus and they're so supportive. So for me, I always look at it in the lens, what can I do to draw fans in? And I like, even growing up, I was never like an outgoing. I was always kind of a little on the shyer side of things. So even like public speaking, like I've gotten better over the years, but there's still times where I am like a little timid.
That you're going to be broadcasting
I'm a little
70
timid
plus games a year,
and but no, like a lot of people I grew up with, they can't believe what I do because of how I like as I was as a kid, and for like a segment like that, they're like, "What is going on?" But I like I keep going back to, I'd never envisioned something like that or what I've done to promote myself. It's always to promote the team, whether that's the fans, the players, the coaches, so on and so forth. But when I was in Worcester, I had a couple different segments that we did. So when I got the job in Idaho and was driving out there, I'm like, okay, I need to figure out like, what is my shtick going to be in Boise? I need something. And I was driving middle of Montana, and I'm like, okay, Steelheads, like something. And I wanted to make something that was consistent, because I think there's something to be said. If you build something consistently, then you garnish the fans, and the fans know, hey, every Tuesday I'm going to be looking out for this because, oh, it's Tuesday, like this is going to take place. Oh, it's a game day, I know this is going to happen. So my first kind of thought was, what can I do that is something pretty much on a consistent basis? So every home game we did it. And with that being said, something that is quick, easy, and can be filmed, edited, and posted in, let's call it 10 minutes. And I was like, what about like a first goal challenge? And I was like, okay, I'm like starting to think of something. And I'm like, what about like fish? How could I incorporate? I'm like, Predict the Fish. Growing up, I loved ESPN College Game Day, like college football.
All right.
And I didn't think about this until maybe like 2 years ago. So this is like a year into the segment. And Lee Corso with the headgear. And I think maybe that's kind of where in my brain, where the Predict the Fish kind of like originated, I was like, oh, wait, I could get in this costume, grab a player, and we can predict who's going to score the first goal tonight. And then if Jesse predicts the first goal scorer, then I'll have to do something dumb. Well, I'm already in the fish costume, so I already am embarrassing myself, so it's fine. But it's going to be more embarrassing for you if you have to get in it. So we would come up with a little bet here and there. There was players that had to wear it for a hot lap after morning skate, or had to wear it in the team video session. And, from all this, I'm like, okay, now how can I incorporate the fans in this, right? It's great that I have this idea. I'm like, okay, we can make this kind of like a social media contest. If we post this video and we tell people to comment who they think's going to score first, and say Dan in Boise predicted that Jesse Cohen's going to score first, and Jesse scores first, we'll go through kind of the entries and we'll pick one of those correct entries, and they'll get a signed puck from that player. We started to kind of evolve it a little bit more. Unfortunately, when I left, now if I was still in Boise, we probably would have continued to maximize it, and probably towards the end of last season, we started bringing in one of our sponsors that sponsored the segment, Anthony's Seafood Restaurant. So it went hand in hand. So there was a lot of different
Not
avenues.
a paid plug, by the way.
Yeah. There was a lot of different avenues that we could go down. Unfortunately, now I don't know, maybe Justin, the new guy, maybe he'll come up with something there.
So now that you're in Ontario, which is, the AHL affiliate of the Kings, like you said, you have much more direct interaction with high-profile prospects. And I think in Ontario this year should be a younger team than previous years. You've got Cohen Zemer and Kenny Connors and Wright, and I'm blanking on all the names, Angus Booth and all the guys. So I know you were coming from Boise the same time the Kings were going to Boise for that preseason game. It was a weird coincidence. Have you begun thinking of any, and now the AHL and the ECHL are very different leagues, very different fan bases, but are you in that mindset?
I think when I went to Boise, it was like, okay, I need something immediately. And I also had way more time before the season. I got here before, and not making excuses, but I got here end of September.
Middle of training camp.
Yeah, I got here, let's just call it middle of training camp. I got here on a Monday night, and our first preseason game was Thursday and Sunday.
Yeah, I met you day one, and then day two after meeting you, we're
at a preseason
asking you about post game.
So
stuff.
Honestly, to be honest, I haven't really thought about it. I think that there's some other things that I'm kind of still making sure are kind of cross the T's and dot the I's. But yeah, there's definitely some things that I kind of want to do, and there's nothing right now particularly that stands out to me. I think something will come, but yeah, I mean, like I said, part of the job is play by play, and that's what I want to do, and that's everyone in our role. But I think at the same time, I love interacting with the players, getting them their personalities out there to the fans, and I just love doing different content pieces, and I love doing it on the road too. I think the road is a big one because a lot of the fans are at the home games, right? And I think when you're on the road, that's where your audience is probably bigger, because all your season ticket holders are probably watching or listening. They're going to be following a little bit more closely to the social media, because at a home game, they're going to be at the game. So I love going out in different cities, and whether it's a stand-up video in the rink, which I'll do, but I'm like, let's make it a little creative. Let's go downtown and film the stand-up video. Let's go to a restaurant. Let's go if there's a lake around, or if there's an ocean around. Let's make it fun, and let's have some fun with it, and show off a little personality.
Two things. First of all, I'm going to plant a seed. Feel free to ignore it if you want. But for years, I have had it in my head. There's a song. It's probably 30 years old now. But there's a song called Two Princes by the Spin Doctors. And I always thought the Rain are, there's the Kings and then
Two Princes.
So
okay.
I don't know, just planting a seed. I always wanted to do something with that idea, but I don't work for the Rain.
I'll mark it
anyway. The other thing is Ontario, the relationship between Ontario and LA is not just the teams, but the markets is odd, because looking at a map, Ontario is not that far away. But I hope I'm not spilling any secrets. You live in the same apartment complex as I do.
Yeah.
And driving to Ontario can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. I've experienced it a little bit as we're chatting now. We've had 4 games, so I've done the drive a little bit. Friday and Sunday series, so I've noticed that Sunday honestly isn't bad.
Sunday's great, especially at 3 p.m.
Yeah, and honestly, the way home on Fridays is pretty good too, but you are going to be kind of grinding your teeth a little bit on the way.
Took me 2.5 hours to get to the rink the last Friday.
Yeah, and talking with Schaff when I was taking the job and just kind of asking him how he went about everything in that realm. And, you find a routine and you find a rhythm, and, there's going to be days where it's going to take you an hour and a half to get down there. Might even take you close to 2, but
how do you connect to that fan base, given that the fan base, like the season ticket members for Ontario, don't live in the South Bay?
Right, yeah.
They live in Ontario.
Yeah, I think, well, for me too, right? I'm one of very select few that lives down here out of the Reign front office. Most of them live down in that way. So, yeah, it's something that still trying to navigate, but I think getting out, because realistically I'm there for games and maybe on other circumstances at events and different community appearances. So I think when you have the opportunities in terms of events and different community appearances, making sure that you're going around and making face with the fans. But I think a lot of it too is just driving that content and getting that word out there on social media, because we're in such a day and age now, whether it's for good or for bad, but a lot of the communication that we do is either on the phone or in front of a screen. I don't necessarily enjoy it like that. I'm more of old school, whereas I like the face-to-face interactions, but there are some limits as to how much of that you can do. And like you mentioned, there is a little bit with that, the distance and all that being said, but I think just being present, right, and just trying to have your face out there as much as possible.
Now, in Ontario, you've got Paige Capistran on the broadcast with you. I know that in Boise, you had, I'm blanking on his name, the gentleman that dressed up like a fisherman when you dressed up
we had a lot of different people, and we had someone that was always in between the benches, Mark Brose, shout out Brosey. He was an older guy, and he's been around Boise forever, and he's just like a local celebrity. He was in the radio business for a long time. So he's mainly always downstairs in between the benches, and then our color person, Jefferson Dahl, who was a former captain, Corey Scorin, who won a Kelly Cup in Boise. We probably had a crew of like 4 or 5 players that retired and now have families and reside in Boise. So we kind of had a rotating cast. Brosey was the mainstay, and Dollar and Scorsy were as well. And then we had a couple other people kind of fill in when the void was needed. So
then you're used to being part of a broadcasting team.
Yeah.
Because some broadcasters in that league and lower leagues have to shoulder everything themselves.
Yeah, no, honestly, like now that you've said that, I guess looking back at this being year 6 working in this, every year that I've been in it, I've at some point during that season, I've called games with other people. In Boise for the last 3 years, like I just said, we had 3 people for every home game. On the road, I was solo. So I think it's very beneficial to kind of have a little bit of both, because you never know, like wherever you go, it might be a place where it's just you, right? Or you might go a place where it's another person, or you might go somewhere else where it is 2 people. So having those different experiences, because it does kind of change how you call the game and how you kind of portray it a little bit more. Like the way that I call a road game versus the way I call a home game is totally different.
Now that you're in LA, I'm going to plant another seed, which you can feel free to ignore. I think that...
Do people tend to ignore you? Is that why you're saying that?
Sometimes. I find that there's a couple of things I think everybody should do in life. Working retail is one of them.
Yeah.
And doing improv is another, particularly in broadcast. Some people have an innate ability to know when it's their turn to step in when somebody else stops talking, but a lot of people don't. And one thing I've noticed about broadcast teams in particular is that it is a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a puck hog, on the team, it's no good. So do you find that your playing experience helps you integrate other parts of the broadcast?
I think so for sure. Yeah, it's different. You're not on the team, but like you just kind of said, it is a team. And I think for me, kind of just what I was alluding to a couple minutes ago was having those different experiences have kind of opened my eyes on how to handle different situations, when to kind of toss it to someone else. And I think a lot of times too, it comes over time. Like if it all depends who you're working with. It might be someone that you don't really know. It might be your best friend. Like it takes time to kind of build that chemistry. And because there's nothing worse, I think, than like, say you have a play-by-play person and a color person. Say you're the color commentator and I'm the play-by-play person. Every time you talk, it's just like me going, "Oh yeah, what'd you think there, Jesse?" Like there's nothing worse because then it just makes it sound so unnatural. So it is kind of like in hockey, it's a read and react situation. But I think for me personally, like having the 3 years in Boise where we are so in tune and in depth with having three different people on the broadcast, it's kind of like opened my eyes to different situations and how to handle different parts of the game.
So you're not the only new face in Ontario. Paige is in year 2, I think,
Yeah,
of her
year
time
2,
on
yeah.
Ontario. Andrew Lord, the new head coach of the Ontario Reign, is in year 1. There's a lot of rookies or second-year players on the Reign roster. Plus, the AHL is just constantly in a state of flux. I actually feel too bad. I don't want to like lump a ton of sympathy on people that don't need it, but it must be frustrating in the AHL because you're at the direct whim of the parent club. You know, if the parent club needs a player, you lose that player.
Yeah.
If the parent club needs the mascot performer to fill in because the mascot performer has the flu, you don't have a mascot that night. Broadcaster, PA announcer, arena host, everything is up for grabs. But have you begun to, do you feel like there's a new team being built with all these new people and personalities and faces?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still very early, and but I think at any level, you're always going to be at the hands of your affiliate, right? Like, and it increases maybe a little bit more once you get to the AHL and the NHL, and then obviously proximity plays a big impact with it as well. There's not many teams that have their AHL team and their NHL team practicing in the same facility. I actually don't even know. Are there any? There might be.
Did San Jose build
Yeah,
a new
they
one
might
just
be
for the
the only.
Barracuda?
Yeah, they might be
yeah.
the only one, right?
Maybe Toronto?
Yeah,
I don't know.
if there are, you can count on
Yeah,
one
right.
hand probably. So there's definitely an element of that, but even at the ECHL level, you're still at the hands of your AHL team. It's just kind of the trickle down effect, right? It's someone gets hurt in the NHL, okay, then they're pulling someone up from the AHL. Well, guess what? The NHL team just pulled someone up from the AHL team. So now the AHL team needs a player. Where are they looking? Their ECHL team, where they have an AHL contracted player, an NHL contracted player. So I've seen it at all different levels. We've been fortunate early on, and knock on wood that we haven't had much. But I think it's one of those things, it's a double-edged sword because especially in the AHL, it's a development league. And, you know, even speaking with Lordo about his time in the ECHL, like he never wanted to like hold a player back from a call up just for like their own well-being, right? Like it's all about the players at the end of the day. Like you want to win, you need to win, and I experienced it in Boise too. Like we had a lot of different players my second year. It was great. We had a couple come to Ontario. Texas was the main affiliate, so went to I think we had like players go to 7 or 8 different AHL teams, and a lot of them were on tryouts. And, you know, say it was the GM in Seoul City in the AHL calling our head coach being like, hey, can we grab so-and-so for the next 2 weeks? Like, we're shorthanded. Like, our coach, Everett Sheen, was never going to say no because he didn't want to, he wanted to make sure that player got the opportunity because who knows, right? So you see it at all different levels, but it's different here in LA because of the proximity of the two teams. But I think at the end of the day, it's a great thing to have. And, you know, everything that I've seen in 3 weeks, like keeping everything in house, the cohesiveness and the way that the Kings and the Reign kind of work together, it almost feels like one big team, if that makes sense.
I mean, I witnessed it for years.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your call, because we were talking very briefly before the camera started recording about something that I used to do that now you've witnessed Jared Shaffron doing that he obviously learned from me. So where did you develop your play style call? Did you do it on your own? Or are you borrowing from announcers that you watched when you were growing up, from the people that you met in college? Where does that come from?
Well, I didn't borrow anything from any announcer growing up because I couldn't even name one, probably.
Fair enough.
But no, I think early on, I think early on, especially in college, I listened a lot. Once I kind of started to realize that this was a profession that I wanted to go into, I started to do, quote unquote, some homework. I did not do my communications 158 class homework, or I did it just to get it done. But I spent my time listening to games and kind of seeing how different announcers reacted to situations. And I think too, when I was in college a lot, it was great to listen to the minor league levels, right? I listened a lot to different announcers, whether it was in the AHL or the ECHL. I had a lot of opportunities in college to kind of go shadow some AHL announcers, being in the Chicago area and not far from places like Rockford, Chicago, Milwaukee, where there are AHL teams. And then obviously Brian Ray, who I mentioned earlier in the show, and Doug Plagans were huge for me in college. I would send them stuff to listen to all the time. They would send me back, here's my suggestions, here's my thoughts. So it was a lot of just kind of listening. I'm a visual learner, and I think that's obviously looking at it's. I think it goes the same with hearing things and writing things down and watching different things. So for me, it was a lot of, I think, shadowing and being around people in the business is very important, and connecting with those people. But at the same time, I think too, the only way you learn is by doing it. And I was very fortunate in college that I was the only one doing it. So I had every opportunity that I wanted. And I think it's different. A lot of these bigger schools with big time broadcasting programs like Northwestern and Arizona State, who have produced awesome broadcasters. But a lot of those people probably, and I could be speaking totally wrong, but a lot of those people, they might not be able to do play-by-play until their junior or senior year, because it's such a more formalized program and there's so many more kids involved in it. And the experiences that they get at those schools are amazing, don't get me wrong, but I think for me, it was a perfect situation that I was able to kind of do everything, do it early, and then kind of learn. So by the time I graduated, let's say a Division III hockey team, if I plays 25 games a year, if I did every game for 4 years, I would have graduated calling 100 games. And say you go to a bigger school where you might not get the opportunity, you might graduate with 10 games. So I think college for me was really, and even my first couple years in the ECHL, it was to kind of find your own style, to find your own craft. But I think back to what I was saying, I think in college I probably pulled a little bit more bits and pieces from this guy, and this guy. But I think if you try to copy someone or emulate exactly what they're doing, you got to be yourself, right? And you got to find what works for you. And I think not the only way, but a main factor in that is just by doing it. And over time, you're just going to evolve. And there's probably some things that I do during a game now that I didn't do 4 years ago. And there's probably things I did 4 years ago that I don't even think about doing now.
I mean, you got to evolve, right?
Yeah.
That's how you get better
Anything.
at the job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cameron McGuire, thank you so much for joining me. As always, I'm going to push people to go to Rain games. I feel like I've been saying this for years. It's an incredible building. There's not a bad seat in the house. And this year, you have way more Kings prospects on the roster than in the last few years. Cameron McGuire, thanks very much. And I'll see you at Ralph's.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.